Oh, I decided this is a pretty good place to do some video to my good mentor Chris. Got my clogs. You caused me to do them. Well, I'm going to talk about motorcycles a little later. You actually made me a list to try to keep me from getting lost on where what I'm going on. My first experience with motorcycles was as a young kid. My friend's fellow classmate, his older brother, went off to do his National Guard summers, his summer camp like it. He had a Harley Hummer, one of the little single-cylinder Harleys that were really popular back then. Anyway, to keep us boys from riding it, he took the gas tank off of it and hid it. So we decided that we were going to ride it. So we had a squirt can of gasoline, and there was what they called a tickler on top of it that you could push the float down a little bit and cause it to lightly flood the gasoline into the intake, and same thing as a choke. And so we'd fill that thing up and through the tickler, and then we'd ride until it started to run out of gas. You'd put the gas can down there and fill it up again, and you'd get another couple blocks out of it. And we had fun riding that little Harley around town, doing that. Nobody ever complained. That was just kids having fun. But that was my first experience with motorcycles. Well, fast forward to the early 70s. I forget what the date, or when the date, it'd been 72, 73. Had a customer that said, "Hey, my motorcycle won't run. Would you get it run?" I said, "Well, we'll try." So he brought it into the tractor dealership, and I tinkered with it and got it running, and it run good. A Honda SL175. I think it was the first year they had them, about 1972 or something like that. So I decided, well, I'm going to ride this thing. So I went out back behind the shop. We had probably what would be, in most cases, a city block, at least half a city block square, and out in back there that was grass, open field of grass. So I went out there. I'm riding across, like that, and I started to go across the grassy area, and I got up for a little bit of speed, and I was coming up on the oil field company's fence, and I said, okay, it's time to brake, and I put the brakes on, and the rear wheel locked. It just rust caused the rear wheel lock. So there I am on a bike, motorcycle with the back wheel sliding out. So okay, as kids you always used to slide the rear wheel out. So I turned into the slide and thought, I'll just do a real cool stop. Well, the motorcycle decided it was going to bite in, and when it did a rotation, and the handlebar was still turned to the tank, and I went off over the tank. And I still remember looking down and seeing my foot caught between that handlebar and that tank, and before I was thrown off onto the ground. And so there I was laying on the ground, taking stock of myself, and my leg hurt. So I started to raise my leg up, and it really hurt. And I looked down, as I'd raise my leg up, my foot would just flop side to side. So, oh my goodness, I couldn't, I was in a bind. So I started screaming, help, help, I need help. And one of the people that lived on the street behind heard me hollering, and came out, and anyway, they saw what was going on, so they called the ambulance. Well, the ambulance back in those days was nothing but the undertaker's hearse. You know, one of his hearse that had been the previous one that he used. So they got the gurney out that they had in it. And, by that time, somebody from the shop had come out. I don't remember whether it was the owner or one of the other workers there, and they put me in that ambulance. And on the way to the hospital, that guy with the ambulance, he didn't know anything about health, what to do. He didn't have any pillows to put on either side of my foot to stabilize it. Well, I got to the hospital, and they took the x-rays and everything, and the next thing you knew that I was in surgery, and I've got a plate and some pins and screws in my right leg and ankle, the lower right leg and ankle, and so had a cast up to my knee. And so 3 or 4 days later, I went to the shop, and I got that motorcycle that they brought up there, and I got on that motorcycle, put my crutches crossways and sat on them, and so that they couldn't fall off. And I rode that motorcycle up to the driver's license bureau, so I get my motorcycle driver's license. And I went in and took the written test, and the lady says, "Well, are you going to try to take your driving test?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, do you have a motorcycle available?" And I said, "Yeah, I rode it up here." "Oh, you can't do that. That's illegal. You didn't have a license." "Well, I got it up here." So we went outside. It was on the main street in town there, and we went outside, and I got on the motorcycle, and thank goodness it was my right ankle leg was broke, and because the only thing I had to do on that side was use the brake. And she made sure the lights and everything, and I started to put the crutches under me. She says, "I'll hold the crutches." And so she said, "I want you to back out, ride down the street, turn right, go to the corner, turn right, go around the block, and come back." So I did. And I got my motorcycle driver's license. And then when shortly after he came and got his motorcycle, I found one that was for sale. The parents were selling a motorcycle, a Honda SL 175, that their son was getting a little, well, he was just doing stuff that they didn't like him to be doing on a motorcycle. And so I bought that one, and that was the first motorcycle that I actually owned. But anyway, let's see. Oh, okay. Let's fast forward to my XL 350, my big thumper, single cylinder, 350cc torque monster. You could have pulled a plow with it. So I had made a special exhaust system for it, and what I used was the exhaust pipe for a 550 Oliver. It had a curve and came out around and went up straight, and so I made that, and took that and modified it a little bit, and brazed it onto I cut the outlet where the muffler come out, and I turned it a little bit, the pipe that went to the muffler, brazed them together and brought the exhaust pipe back, and did the old thing we did in sports car racing. Put a little strip of paint down along the pipe, and run it for a bit how you want to run it, and where you see that paint's burned at, that's where you cut it off at. That's where the maximum pressure is at. So that's the point that it'll help evacuate the exhaust out. And so I cut that off. Well, that just was way loud. So I made a muffler out of the other little end that I cut off, and it was kind of squeezed down, and I put a pipe on the inside of it, because sound, like I've always said, sound travels down the inside of the pipe, against the outside, and this muffler turned the sound back and had a tube that was full of holes. It quieted it down. Didn't really make it that quiet, but it was a lot quieter than it was. So one Sunday evening, all of us were going to the pizza place after we'd been out riding on Sunday, and 25 of us on motorcycles. Some had their wives and kids on their motorcycles, and it was a big group. We went and ate pizza. Well, we pulled up there, and about that time, here come a Barney Fife type cop, one of them that are a little full of themselves. He come up there in his car and had his lights on, and he says, you don't have a muffler on that bike? And I said, yes, sir, I do. He says, well, I don't see a muffler on that bike. And I had my leather gloves on, so I just reached down there and I gave that thing a twist and pulled it out and handed it to him, and I said, here's my muffler. Of course, he reflexively put his hand out, and I dropped that hot piece of muffler into his hand. Well, it didn't take him but about half a second to realize that he now had a hot muffler in his hand. Well, that muffler got dropped. He said, well, he got in his car and left. That was the last time I was ever hassled about that muffler. But when we go riding, the muffler was usually stuffed in the pocket under the seat or something like that. So that was one of the things. We used to go over to Linville, Indiana, to the big strip mines over there, and miles and miles of trails back there that you could ride. One of them, it was always the one that you kind of got a new guy. In other words, somebody that hadn't been riding with you. You got them with you, and I lost my list. That's all right. You got them, riding about third or fourth in line, and one guy, we'd go through this small river or big creek or whatever you want to call it, strip mine creek, and the guy in the lead would go up there, and he'd hit the kill switch on the handlebar on his motorcycle, and of course he'd stop, and he'd go through the cranking and kicking and everything trying to get it started, and it wouldn't do it. Well, a couple others of us would ride up on both sides of him, be like we were really looking to see what was wrong. We'd be sitting on our bikes and looking down, and well, the newbie would be the next one in line. So we'd start going, come on around, and like that. So of course he'd take off and start to come around. Well, the only thing of it is, we'd muddied up the water a little bit, and he didn't know that we were on a ridge that was in this river, and both sides of it, regardless which side he was going to go through, he was going to go through into about 6 foot of water. And oh my goodness, I tell you, we pulled that a couple of times, and of course those who had experienced it or had seen it happen, always kept their mouth shut when there was a newbie riding, and always, all the time somebody was caught. First, we'd always help them get their bikes going again, help blow them out and everything. But we rode. They had the black coal enduro, which was 90 some miles trails throughout all this large, huge, miles of strip mine, so we rode it backwards. We rode some of it backwards. In other words, we rode it when the race was over. Well, we'd get out there and try to follow it. It was kind of interesting. One place we were down in this ditch that the enduro had crossed, and we heard this two-cycle bike just screaming and coming like that. And here we're down there, and that guy never even slowed down for that ditch. He sailed over us. We were down there at the bottom. We watched that two-cycle motorcycle jump across, and we saw a couple others going through the saplings, the saplings that were growing up where the trail went through, and they were riding hard, and all those little saplings were just banging on their hands, and had to be crazy. We were crazy, but that was really crazy. But right there at Linville, they had a big bowl, as we called it. It was a big bowl, about probably 150 foot or better bottom to it. And guys would ride from the bottom, try to get up to the ridge, and there were several trails that went up where you could hill climb up the side of it. But there was the new one they were working on, and it was one that you got up about 120 or 30 feet up, and like that. But there was a stone ledge that stuck out. So when you got to that, your front wheel was actually pushed back away from the hill, and like that. These guys were trying to get over it. And one guy went up there, and when he went he went over backwards, and down he come sliding, and here come the motorcycle, and motorcycle hit him, killed him, broke his neck, which kind of put the fear in everybody, and except one guy in our group, Crazy Ken. Ken had a 400cc Suzuki, and everybody was trying to get him to go. Everybody was ragging on him. I mean, people we didn't even know. Oh, let's see you take that 400 up there and see if you can do it. And like that. So he finally did. He put his helmet on, and he kick-started that 400cc Suzuki, and he went back to the backside of the pit. Here he come across. Just as he was coming across the bottom, he jumped up and stood on the seat, hanging onto the handlebar, standing on the seat. He went up that hill, and when he got to that stone outcrop, he threw all of his weight over the front wheel and brought the front wheel of that thing down on top of that stone, and the back wheel come right on up over the stone. He rode right out the top. One guy pushed his bike, just threw his bike over down there at the bottom, threw his helmet down, and walked off. He was walking. We don't know whether his bike here or come back pick his bike up or not, but it was just quite a thing. Helmets. I became a believer in helmets. I didn't have a helmet at first, and we were at what they called Skeeter Mountain, south of Grayville, next to the interstate, and there was a place alongside the road, and it had a couple layers. It really wasn't that hard of a thing to climb, and so I took off with that 350 up there and that great big knobby tire on the back, and I went up that thing, and I got up over into kind of a level spot, getting ready to go up the last part of it, and I rolled the throttle back, and all that torque and that thing, it just brought that bike over backwards, and I hit that ground, and I I got my bell rung. I come to and, come back into my senses, and here's all these angels fluttering around up in my view, and oh my gosh, I've died. And then one of the guys in our group stuck his ugly face over the top of my head, and I thought, nope, I didn't go to heaven. I went to hell. That looking at him. I got my gourd ring. So that week we went to Evansville to the motorcycle shop, and I bought a helmet. And from that time on, I wore a helmet. Religiously wore a helmet. Had one time we were coming down the blacktop road, and we were moving along 50, 60 mile an hour, and I hit a bee, and it got me right here inside the head, and it went back into my helmet, and what's right back there is your ear, and oh, I got stung on my ear. I put that bike into whoa as fast as I could, got off the bike, let it fall down, got my helmet off, got that bee out of there, and oh, I tell you, I had a burning and swelling ear the rest of the day. So, sometimes helmets are, kind of good and bad. But after, due to health problems and not looking at the date on my driver's license and everything, I had to take my driver's license test over again. Your license has been expired too long. Well, I just didn't know, that's all right. You just got to take your license test over again. So, my CDL had gone by the wayside due to my health, and that's one of the things that messed things up. But anyway, I took my driver's license test, which the only one that I didn't have a truck there to drive, and I didn't have a motorcycle there to drive, so the only license I got was for a passenger car or a pickup truck, and no big deal. I'm not going to ride a motorcycle anymore. I didn't have one, hadn't had one for a while, and well, my wife wanted to go riding on a motorcycle, and she didn't want one of those things that shook so bad that run on 2 cylinders and sit there and shook themselves apart, and she didn't like those, and I really didn't either. V twins that I don't know. So anyway, we went to the Honda store, and the guy said, well, hey, here's a guy that's got one for sale, got a 1200 Goldwing for sale. So we called him, and we drove up there to where he was at, and made the deal. He came down, and we went up a little bit. We met in the happy ground, and so I rode that thing home. When we got home, my darling bride says, I want to go for a ride too. So she climbed on, and we went for about a 30-mile ride around the area. Come back in, and was a hill we had to go over on the gravel road. All of a sudden, the front of that bike just went, boom, just went out. There'd been a wash in the road where it washed out, and the wonderful road commissioner, all they can do is run a drag. They can't repair anything. They just run a drag and drug gravel into it. Of course, what happens when that wheel hit that edge of that, and the gravel just washed out, and down we went. And oh, I got a skinned up knee. It hurt. I had to walk with a cane. The doctor said you need to keep the weight off of it. So I decided I needed to take a motorcycle test. And so The only place you could take it was in Olney, Illinois, and the Honda dealer was right across, right at catty cornered across the highway. So he would rent you for $40. He'd rent you a little 200cc or so bike, and you could drive it around his place over there until you got used to it. And then one of his guys would take it over to the driver's license bureau, and you could take your test on it. So I did. I took my test with a cane. First time with crutches, this time with a cane. And so, funny thing about that one was they had one spot where they had you stop at the line, and the lady says, "Now I want you to accelerate hard and across, and then stop at this next line before you cross this next line." Well, I did accelerate hard. Front wheel of that bike come up. No big deal. Not the first time I rode a wheelie. Wasn't the last time. And it come up, and then I let it down, and I put the brakes on, and I stopped. She said, "I should tell you, you're not supposed to ride a wheelie." And I said, "Well, you told me to accelerate hard." And I said, "That little bike, getting the front wheel in the air is no problem." She said, "Well, go back and do it over again. This time, keep the front wheel on the ground." So I passed the motorcycle test with my using the cane. And the 1200, we built a chair or a trailer to put enclosed trailer to put my power chair in, that we could haul the power chair with us, so we went someplace where I could get around. And but a local young man was killed in Afghanistan or Iraq, I don't remember which one, and there was a big ceremony, flags, miles of flags, and we escorted from the plane, his body from the plane, which was Kalitta Air, which you got to give the Kalitta Air, a good thumbs up, because they provide that service all the time, free of charge. They flew the body into the local airport, and it was put into the back of the ambulance, and we escorted the ambulance into town. And then they had a day of the funeral. The Illinois Patriot Guard showed up with probably close to 100 motorcycles and like that. Well, we had our motorcycle, and I'd put a big American flag on the back of it, a couple of them, 3x5 American flags on poles, and we headed across from Marksville, Illinois to Vincennes, Indiana, and all those flags caused that trailer to whip that bike all around and everything. And of course, had flashers on, the lights on, and on the trailer, lights were on the trailer and everything. And we got to the cemetery, and I parked up away from there, and I wasn't going to go down because I couldn't walk down there. And guy says, "You got smoke coming out from under your seat." Oh my goodness. And I got that seat jerked off there, and the wiring harness was just burning up in it. I didn't know anything about an isolator that is used to isolate your trailers, the power going to the trailers, isolate it from the small wires in the wiring harness, using some transistors and diodes and stuff in the isolator assembly. But burned up the wiring harness. Well, I rode it home. I got it started, I rode it home. And next time I went out and started, it wasn't going to go. So we tried to figure out what we were going to do. That one was going to take a whole new wiring harness system and everything. She said, "Let's go to the Honda dealer." They had a brand spanking new 2010 Honda, and this was 2012. Only had 12 miles on it or something like that. And he said, well, take it out, ride it down the road and back, see what you think. So I did. I said, I like it, 1800, sweet bike. And so we went in, and because it was he had to buy it, that killed the Honda warranty on it. But he put a 3-year warranty. He did the insurance thing for a 3-year warranty, and we went home with a brand 2-year-old brand new Honda Goldwing. Got a trailer hitch with it, got the isolator, got armrest for the back seat, got a luggage rack. I can't. Yeah, I think that was all we got in the deal. But I put all that stuff on, and we had fun riding. Rode it for a while, and then we put the Baker wind wings, where it's little wings that you could put up on went up on above the rear view mirrors, that you could put air on yourself or deflect it around. Had the lower wings under the rear view mirrors that would do the same thing, and we even got the ones that deflected the rain from your legs. That's what we rode, and we rode that bike about 40,000 miles. We pulled a camping trailer 30-some thousand miles, and we did a lot of moto camping, as it's called, with that Aspen camper trailer that we got. So, but the 1800 died when the fueling incident that I put the metal funnel in took the opened the door, took the gas cap off, put the metal funnel in there, got the 5-gallon plastic gas can, and it started pouring, and it was glug, 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 and when it started pouring easy, I let it down on the rest on the funnel, and it exploded, vapors exploded. Plastic gas cans generate static electricity, so that funnel was grounded through the frame of the motorcycle, down through the metal side stand that was on the ground, perfect ground. And, it blew me about 12 feet back from there. Had my safety gear on, so melted the front of my jacket, made my beard disappear, made my eyebrows disappear, gave me a good hard sunburn on my face, but my helmet protected everything else. My leather gloves protected my hands, and so when I got to my senses over and looked up with a 5-gallon gas can, the motorcycle was totally in flames. The 5-gallon gas can was laying on the ground, spraying burning gasoline on the building that was about 10 to 12 feet from the motorcycle. So we lost a building full of antiques, and lost a motorcycle. But the motorcycle had been insured by Liberty. Our insurance agent had changed the insurance on it, and put us on Liberty, and we'd only been on it about a month. And we got a very fair settlement out of that. The building was a different story. That was Peking duck insurance. That's what I'll call it, Peking duck. If you know the insurance agents, but they were a total joke. They didn't want to pay for anything, and we had actual cash value on items. So everything we had in that building that we had to go out and buy, and they paid what we had to pay for the new items. They didn't pay anything for the wood beam plow that Stella's grandmother broke ground with when she homesteaded in Montana at the age of 18. Well, that ends my stories for my motorcycle stuff. So, as I've always said, don't take any wooden nickels. Take care. Hope to see you again. in another video. And Ross, I see you laughing in the background there. I look through the lens and see you laughing. And Chris, I see you making a smirk about my Crocs. So, there's a couple other of you I see in the lens there that's looking at me that I recognize. So, oh well, glad you're here. If you made it this far, hope that an old man's musings doesn't bore you too much. If he can get up out of the chair. Once I get to these up, I'm on my way. Take care.